the view in runtime itself. So runtime creation means you create your Java code. As the Java code start executing, the view will be generated. Previously, we were initializing the object which was defined in XML. Of course, that is also a runtime creation. But whereas that layout was defined in XML, so Java is doing some sort of parsing in order to identify which widget or which layout to be rendered. There is a small workaround also. We can avoid that step, but I won't recommend it because complex views, if you do it through the programming or programmatically, if you generate the views, you cannot create a complex views. Let's see how a small example how we can write it. Remember a previous example we had what you call a, a list view, I remember. So list view we were having in defined in this XML file, and we were displaying that in the content. What I am trying to create now, for time being, I am going to set the set content view commented. I am creating a linear layout programmatically, initializing its object. One more thing, layout parameter, which I'll let you know what is that. Two classes I am layout parameter width and height. Okay. By going through this code, you can easily infer. I tried to programmatically create the linear layout. If you look at it, linear layout initialized, and it has a width and height set to match parent, and it has a orientation set to vertical. The width and height is set using the layout parameter, which is specified exclusive for linear layout. It has to be an external class, so the width and height is set. So this is almost more or less equivalent to, this is a relative layer. Let me find any linear layout. This particular linear, of course padding I haven't added. So this particular linear layout, which is having layout width and height set to match parent, orientation set to vertical, but the same thing has been written in this way. Padding also I can set, so I need to set it individually. So it means the padding is set to 10. I want to attach a button or display a button. Setting a gravity to center so that any widget what I attach will be centrally placed. I want a button. Programmatically create a button. Button also going to have a layout parameters. Of course, button itself contain a similar thing. I can reuse the same. It will become a much bigger button. Okay, I'll create one more. With we set I'll hard code the value. Make it wrap content. Width and height specified. Button text. I'll hard code it now. This is a button is ready, and finally attach it to a linear layout. Add view button. When everything is done, set the content view linear layout. This will create a view for you, a linear layout and a button. So you could have done this using XML with few lines of code, but I had to write number of lines in order to programmatically recreate the same view. Let me see how it works. Created a button for me. It's kept in center, and if you notice, the bunch of linear layout code took this many number of lines. Remember, a button also contains a linear layout inside, means every view contains a layout hidden. First point. A button keeps the text. It keeps in uppercase letter. Let me find why. But a button is there. Button also going to contain a text inside. So a button itself internally contains a layout, and that's give a position for the text. Even though button a widget, but widget is derived from every view in Android derived from the class called view. So a button internally contain a one more layout which keeps the alignment of the text. That's the reason I defined a linear layout parameter and specified the width and height. So, and finally setting the layout parameter for the respective button, and I also put the text, and this button instance created, and finally the button was added to a linear layout as a one of a child. We already know linear layout keep everything. In this case we have set it to vertical, so naturally it would have, if any other button comes, it will keep in another vertical position. So for example, I am adding one more. Okay, instead of repeating, I repeat one more time. Thrice I have repeated in same object. Being same object, it's not allowed, seems to be. Okay, 1 second. Three buttons got added. So since already we have a linear layout property set to vertical, so it added one by one, and we have set the alignment to center, and actually it puts the content into center. So this is a programmatically creating the view skipping the XML. So you can also use this way, but the problem is we cannot produce a complex views, because if you want to produce a complex view, you need to write number of codes, number of lines of code, and one point you will lose the imagination where which one is going to come. But I would like to tell this is also possible. You can create if your layout is pretty simple, where you don't want to use XML, you can use this way in order to create your UI. Or partially you can keep something in XML, partially you can use something in this way also. For example, in this case I'm going to use a set content view but partially writing. So activity main is already having a relative. I don't want this bunch of codes. I'm going to make it as a linear layout. So this linear layout already has a text view attached to it. I'm going to give it the ID. Some name. I am giving ID for my linear layout, remember. So some view already exists. What I'm going to do is I'm going to attach the set content view here. So I need to remove this one. Since the linear layout which is already created in XML, I can do, I'll comment it for your reference. Now the linear layout comes from the set content view, that whatever thing we have added. Now this linear layout gets the three buttons programmatically. So half of the thing has been defined in XML, the rest is coming from the runtime execution. So this way also you can make use of your layout propagation. So in this case that set content view should be on the top, that's otherwise I cannot initialize linear layout. So this linear layout already contains a text view and attach all the three buttons below to it. So a text view already present, and below to that the 3 buttons got added. So this kind of technique you can make use of it. Why I'm coming in this point is I'm going to go to a grid layout. Grid is something like a matrix kind of thing, 4 cross 4, 5 cross 5 rows and columns going to come. If anything I have programmatically attached to it, that time I may need to add the content in runtime using a array or array list or anything else. So that time it would be very useful for me to attach the particular widgets through programmatically. So this is one way. So having everything defined in Java and have that particular view attached, that's also possible. Otherwise, partially create something, for example, define layout, linear layout alone in XML, and rest you can programmatically attach it. So all the way is possible, but it is up to you, of course, which way you feel is comfortable. You can make use of it. There is no limit. But my suggestion is, if your view is too complex, we better define everything in XML. And if your view is very limited and very small, for example, one small button and edit text alone comes in, you can easily do it here. The such a thing would be useful for maybe alert dialog. Dialog, you can make use of such a, UI generation, so that it could be generated with the edit text. For example, you want to display a pop-up with the username and password and the login button, and that you want to display in a pop-up. So this technique you can make use of it. Instead of creating everything in XML, you can directly generate them. So this is one. This one I wanted to share. I'll check why these things are displaying in uppercase letter. I'll let you know, because I have no reason, because I'm adding in a lowercase only, but things are displaying in uppercase. I'll find out why. And also I want to give one more example on having a custom adapter for rendering database items. We've been using a cursor adapter or simple cursor adapter to display the data which is specified in database. You can also have your own adapter with your own data types, and you can have that customized in order to display in ListView. That also you can do. And maybe I'll write the code. So if possible, I try to introduce some new data type instead of hash map or something, because the hash map data can be easily displayed using simple adapter itself. So in this case, I have a cursor value coming in, so the cursor itself looks like a hash map environment, so that will be displayed so easily. So if any other data type I can create, I'll try to display that as well. So that's one example. Then I want to move ahead to create what is service. So what is service in terms of Android? I'm going to introduce it. It's pretty simple, pretty easy, but it has more powerful. So that's what we need to understand. Maybe with some example, we'll see the difference between the service and activity, and how far they are going to be helpful for us to write longer running processes. So I'll wind this part up to here. It's for my previous error. Close this project. I'll put the code later after explaining. The shopping list, I'm going to say 3.1, but I'm not going to consider it as a really an upgrade, because the simple cursor adapter itself is more powerful, and I do not see any reason of replacing adapter, since only thing I need a customized data to be displayed. But we would like to see that option as well. So for that example, we are going to write some name. kept the code open because I want to copy most of the source code from there. First part, I'll start with strings file. Okay, this is done. In menu, I need to copy. The unwanted stuff I'm also removing as I copy. Which one is needed? This is throwing error because of obvious reason. Still showing error. Because that I'm going to copy from. So copied all the source codes from the previous exercise, or the final one is the manifest. This copy pasting would be very helpful if you do not have any prefix here. This guy twice repeated. Why? Unwanted manifest will remove. Why? I don't know what reason it created twice. Thankfully, it did not give any errors. So everything looking fine. We'd like to test it, then we'll modify the code. Start. Sincerely, there is no error. Shocking. So my project is ready. So everything is fine. Now only thing I would like to replace the cursor into some different type of uh, data type. So I would like to have my own cursor defined. So instead of simple cursor adapter, I would like to put some other cursor. So what I have to do, first point, what kind of data type you'd like to bind, that we need to first conclude it. What kind of data type? Right now the cursor itself a key value map pair, so prefer I would like to create my own data type. In this case I'm going to say I'm going to name it as a shopping items. I will keep it as a shopping item itself because it's the property of a one single item. The attributes will be it's going to be item name is always a string, and what kind of we have a double, I remember, item quantity, one more, item price, string item notes, and of course primary key. These are all the attributes of your particular shopping item. You can, I'm going to encapsulate it, of course. So already Java has one easy way to generate methods for setting getting values, so that the private method values can be set and retrieved using setter getter methods. Generate getters and setter, which will create so-called methods for you. I think it creates a method so that the value of the particular attribute could be set using some setter method and also can be retrieved using a getter method. So I can denote all the attribute as one single data type, in this case shopping item. So I'm going to use this particular class to define the property of my items. So property, and property, when you try to define a property, what all the attributes you want, you will ask. So that attribute is nothing but my shopping item contains an item name, and it contains item quantity, it contains item price, and it contains item notes, and of course an item ID. So those values have been protected. So the access is given only through setter and getter methods. What kind of use it is going to give me, of course we will see them. So this is a class, and this is an object type. It is same like string. String is an object type which contains a uppercase letter to start with. So similarly, shopping item is an object now. And you can easily differentiate. Sometime I type double as a uppercase, sometime a lowercase. It's nothing, both are same, but only difference is the lowercase tells these are all the primitive data types, and uppercase distinguish its object form. So the same data type, we want to refer it as an object, keep it as the uppercase, and that will be available only for few data types, not all the data types. Primitive data type mean, for example, string is not a real data type of your Java. Character is actually the characters, the single character is actually primitive data type. A combination of character forms a string. So that's how the string is built. That's the reason you cannot find a lowercase string, because there is no string. It's not a primitive data type at all. Whereas double is also a primitive data type. Integer is a primitive data. It's a real number. These numbers are represented. It is there for a base data objects, and rest of the objects were created using these kind of setter getter methods. String maybe is built based on that. Okay. And of course we need to have our own adapter. First instance, I'm keeping that as a utility class because we can keep it anyway, but I felt it is, so I'm going to make it as a shopping adapter. So that's very customized for my shopping items. Hope you remember. So let me base adapter. This is a simple adapter, which of course I need to correct them, but before I would like to add a constructor so that the data can comes in, the data can come in with context as well, because we need a context instance in order to inflate it, because without the context I cannot inflate anything, because the inflator is defined as one of the system service of a view element context. And I'm going to create an array list of shopping item. Let me make it as items. I'm going to create an array list of shopping item. So this shopping item as individual occurrence would have its own attribute value for each occurrences. So other, and of course I need a global access for it. Okay, inflated instance also needed. First one, items set to the incoming items set to global, and inflator initialized with a system service, defined inside the system service. So, and depends, the count is going to be the size of the items. If it is of course an array list, so size will work. Get item is going to be items.get. It's going to give a position, so the specific item object will be retrieved. It's of type object. Remember, we may need a typecasting. Item ID, I do not have a specific item ID, so I will simply return the position itself, whatever it's coming. That's the reason sometime adapter returns an item and also position also same. You may noticed sometime item and position comes with the same value. One is as an integer, another as a long. So this particular item ID I have defined as a position itself, so naturally it's going to give me the position only. But if at all, if you want to have a context, base context, sorry, context menu, there the item will be respective item ID depending on the data. Okay. So this is done, and here, yeah. So I'm going to need a class. I'm going to make it as a holder. So holder. Two text we I have. So we know the mechanism now. So if convert view equal to null, and else, two things we need to do. Define your folder. Convert view. So first we need to inflate, right? Inflator, inflate. I need a this one. So view group is parent, attach root set to false. The resources are dot layout dot, I don't know what's the name, list title. It is not detecting, maybe some imports wrong. This Android data which is not needed for me. This one. The layout is inflated. Now initializing the text views, which is there in the holder. Since you already know, I'm trying to go slightly faster. This is for initializing. And finally setting the tag so that it won't be recreated if it is already loaded. We need to typecast it. So this is up to this, pretty familiar. Now time to attach the value. Setting the text right now is going to be from items, get position, get item name. That's where the difference is going to come. This is a getter method of the specific index. Of course, it would have to be converted into double. Looks fine. So it is a specific data type. This data type is array list of shopping item. This is a specific object we created, and it has attributes in order to define your shopping item. Those attributes have been defined as individual object, and it has setter getter methods also defined. So when I want to retrieve the value, I use the getter method. When I want to set the value, I use the set method. But in this case, assume the value is already been set and it is retrieving and attaching to a list view. This is a list view specific adapter. Now we have to modify. It's a slightly a complex one, even though. Okay. First point, I need to the cursor thing. I would like to modify my DB for, instead of retrieving a cursor, it can give me some other different data type. These two methods I am slightly going to modify. Going to make it as an array. It is going to give me an array list. Empty array list of shopping items. Now I have a cursor, so the for loop I'm going to keep it here itself. It is get item by array by ID itself. Okay, instead of array, okay, this block I would prefer to have it here instead of this block. Okay, that's the only thing I need it in the array format. As we already know, I'm going to build set item ID. I'm building my object here. Set item name. Item price. A shopping item object defined using setter method for every occurrences. Once every occurrence is completed, shopping items add the shopping item object. When it is done, move the cursor to next position. And thus it will have a shopping items array list created for you. It is exactly the same as array list of hash map, whereas there is no setter getter method. We directly associating with the key. But right now I have a method, so setter method, which will make sure the every occurrences of shopping item is created and added to array list. And this cursor will work and fully complete. And I can safely close the cursor also here and return the shopping items. So get all items array I have given, and this one I don't want array list because I know it is going to be a single array list, so I'm going to make it as a shopping item itself. So item ID and everything. The for loop is not required because it's going to be one single item, and it will give me a shopping item object directly. So these two methods additionally I have written. So my adapter is slightly different. That's the reason I had to modify, because using this simple cursor adapter, which was previously displaying a cursor as a data input. Right now we are not going to use a cursor. Instead we are going to use a different data type. First point, I can open close the database whenever I need it, so I don't need to have a DB as a global one. Not required, but of course you can still keep it. So what I'm going to do, whenever the data required, I'm going to open and close it. Instead of simple cursor adapter, I'm going to use, as the name we gave, shopping shopping adapter. And the data what I am going to display here is we'll make it as items. It's good to have it initialized, so empty array list, that is good. New shopping adapter, and the items is an input. So this should be enough for us to display the data from the database. ID, okay. Here also I'm using ID, so you can use the position also, but since I'm using ID, let me see what kind of impact it is going to give me. The change cursor I don't need, and I probably need a data notified something. like I probably define it as a separate method. Just keep a name refresh. So this method, wherever that list view need to be refreshed, I can use that. I think this is not needed. Notify dataset changed. I'm going back. So this will requery your database and attach the new items for it and open close the database accordingly. And wherever this thing is required, I'm going to use it. This is for deleting. Let me see how things work. ID, I'm returning the position only now. So, but that's not good. But anyway, let me try. Something terribly wrong seems to be. Okay. Value is not displaying, but I would like to verify whether it is going correctly or not. Maybe notification going wrong. Value is there. Maybe a adapter is not refreshing. In that case, what we can do, instead of notifying, we can recreate the adapter itself if you have an issue on the adapter getting refreshed. I'll move this block, entire block. This will make sure you keep it at the top for your reference. Every time this method will call the database, get all the items and attach it to the adapter. So it is of course the data with the new data and also with the refreshed items also getting attached. So I'm calling refresh whenever item get deleted, whenever item get added or edited. Due to some reason the items not reflecting or it doesn't understand, the data has got changed. Value or updating. Okay, this is looking fine. But I'm going to have a problem now. I could see a problem directly here itself. I tried to edit the second item mango, whereas I get apple. It means it is wrongly fetching the record. If I call this eventually, of course, expected value, because I'm calling the position and I'm my adapter actually setting the position as a item ID. It means the ID which is coming as is nothing but a position itself coming as an ID. You may remember the position thing is having an index starting from 0, whereas database does not have a value starting from 0. So I need to convert this thing so that it always displays an item ID instead of position. So how I can do here, so this will retrieve an item ID instead of a position. So that particular item ID which is something coming from a database, so it will be easy for it to query and display the right record. Now if I call the first one, it shows the right record. So it does display. Of course, it is also deleting my country. So this example uses a different adapter and different data type, and this also has the same feature, maybe few flexibility. The cursor is a long, for example, the cursor needs an active database connection throughout, whereas this particular example, whenever the data querying or whenever data insertion happens, that time only database connection opened and duly closed whenever it is not required. So when in idle connection time, this particular class does not have any connection with the database. The database connection is requested only when it loads the content or whenever it gets edited or inserted, and then the connection getting closed. So removing the active database connection is one of the benefit as for this particular application. Previously, we had a database connection open throughout the activity lifecycle for the particular class called ShoppingList activity. So we had a MyDB as defined as a global. We opened the connection here, and on destroy only we were calling DB close. So throughout the list view, the database connection was open, but in this case, the database connection opened, closed whenever needed, and disconnected. Even though it uses a different type of data type, in this case array list of shopping item, which is a in order to define its property, I have some attribute and encapsulated them for setting and retrieving the value. Since it is an array list, so I have a enormous flexibility to index and retrieve or do various things because array list having a lot of feature than a cursor. Cursor considers one of heavyweight object, and of course because of one reason it takes a lot of time. I mean, of course, retain the database connection. So that's one benefit. Negative side, maybe I had to write a number of lines of code, and again I need to convert the cursor into different data type. Previously I could directly take the cursor and attach it to a list view. It was a very easy for me, but now I had to slightly do a roundabout coding to retrieve the value. So that was a slightly difficult task for me. So that's the only thing. I have used this code only. I haven't used this get item array by id. That would be needed in item activity, I remember. The get item, which is again calling from the cursor only. Instead of that, I'll name it as a object. The array is not relevant. And I can close the DB connection. I don't need this cursor. So this also just once using get item object by id, define the id and call it. So the get item, anyway, it's called once is fine. Both are same. So this place. You can change the toast because we are not editing it. So a small change. So now the cursor is nowhere used in the UI thread. Mean in UI there is no word cursor. Only database connection, retrieve the data and close the database. Just few seconds of time, we open the database, and once the retrieve a value is retrieved, we close the database connection completely. Of course, the benefit I already told you, cursor is something keeps the database connection quite longer. So we do not need to have a longer time retain the particular database connection. And of course, retrieving the value for a cursor in this case is not a bigger problem. But if I write a content provider, which is a shared database, there retrieving the cursor and running and getting the value in the UI thread is going to be slightly costly as well as resource consuming one. The reason is That particular data, since it is a shared database, one or more apps same time may be accessing the database. So that time the cursor which you retrieved may be having another connection with another application itself. So retrieving the value of from the cursor in a UI thread may be a costly affair if it is a shared database. But as far as this example, it is not a shared database, so we don't need to worry about it. But still, this approach is also good since we use a very minimal time to retain the database connection. And also we came to know how to create our own object having our own specific attribute type using the setter getter method. You would have seen this example well before in your Java learning program itself, but right now you're seeing it working for one particular purpose. So this this is how you can define your own object types, and by duly defining their attributes as a private members and give the access either through setter getter, thus your object is created. That object, so in this case I have used the object, the similar this particular object inside an array list. So this object type is repeated with a different value set for the attributes. Thus it got displayed in the shopping adapter, which the method we already know. So this is one of way to create your custom, put your custom adapter in place, and also a different data type. I will upload this source code to developer portal. I'll give a time maybe for your exercise. Maybe last half an hour maybe is more than enough for me to give an introduction about service. So that I will do it accordingly, maybe around 5:30. So till the time you can do the exercise, whatever it is pending, make sure you guys finish it off.